Hey everyone, and welcome. Get ready because today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some seriously cool stuff about casual English.
Awesome.
So you sent over some really interesting material, and we're
Yes.
going to use that to try to unlock those hidden tricks that make conversations flow smoothly and naturally.
Yeah.
And think of it this way. You might know all the grammar rules and stuff,
Right.
but this deep dive is really all about how to sound more relaxed, confident, like a native speaker in everyday conversations.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that even if you consider yourself fluent,
Mhm.
there are all these subtle things that native speakers just do instinctively that make a world of difference.
Exactly. It's not just about textbook English.
Yeah.
It's more about capturing that effortless, natural vibe.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. First up, we got to talk about the building blocks of casual speech, and that is contractions.
Uh-huh.
I've noticed how someone can sound really formal and almost like robotic when they're not using contractions.
know.
It's like they're reading from a script or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Totally. So using contractions can't, those aren't just shortcuts.
Right.
They really do change the rhythm and make you sound less robotic.
Yeah.
Think about it. You rarely hear someone say, I am going to the store.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds super strange, right?
Super strange. It
Yeah.
totally does. And that reminds me of this presentation I went to where the speaker kept saying I shall instead of all. It just made the whole thing feel so stiff.
Oh my gosh.
And it totally took me out of the moment.
Yeah, that's such a good example because I shall isn't grammatically incorrect or anything, but it's way too formal for a casual setting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like wearing a ball gown to a casual barbecue.
Huh. Okay, that's a great analogy.
Thank
So if you're looking for that casual, easygoing flow,
Right.
contractions are your secret weapon.
Exactly.
They just instantly make your English sound more natural and authentic.
For sure.
Now let's talk about something a little bit more controversial,
Okay.
and that is fillers.
Mm.
Those little leafs, and likes that sometimes get a bad rap.
Oh, yeah.
I'll admit that too many can be distracting,
Mm-hmm.
but can they ever be a good thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all comes down to using them strategically because in real conversations, we don't have perfectly planned responses all the time.
Uh-huh.
We think as we go, right? So fillers can actually help bridge those gaps and help us avoid those awkward silences.
Yeah.
And honestly, using some fillers is way more natural than trying to speak perfectly all the time.
So it's almost like those fillers give our brains a moment to catch up,
Right.
while also signaling to the other person that we're still engaged in the conversation.
Exactly. They kind of smooth out the bumps in the conversation.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, some fillers can even add personality or even humor.
Uh-huh.
I have this friend who uses in the funniest ways.
Oh, yeah.
And it's her signature thing.
I know exactly what you mean. It's
Yeah.
like a little quirk.
Yeah. But you're right. It's a balancing act, isn't it?
It is.
Not too many, not too few.
Yeah.
Kind of like spices when you're cooking.
Right.
The right amount enhances the flavor.
Exactly.
But too much can ruin the dish.
Totally.
Speaking of adding flavor,
Yeah.
let's move on to what I like to call informal phrasing.
Okay.
These are those delightful rule breakers that make casual English so dynamic.
Uh-huh.
Like gonna, wanna, gotta.
Right.
Now, those are fun.
They are.
And they definitely add a lot of personality and make you sound like you're in the groove of the conversation.
Yeah.
When I was first learning English, I was told to avoid those phrases at all costs.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But now I realize that they're not actually incorrect.
Uh-huh.
They're just a different way of speaking, more suited to casual settings.
Yeah, precisely. It's about adapting your language to the context.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Those phrases are super common among younger speakers.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to connect with that demographic,
It's really key to understand how to use those phrases naturally.
it's like knowing the secret handshake to join the cool kids club.
Exactly.
But it makes me wonder, is there a risk of sounding out of touch if you use slang or informal phrases that are no longer current?
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
And it brings us to a really crucial part of casual English,
Hmm.
being mindful of your audience.
Yeah.
Because using slang that's outdated or unfamiliar can create a communication barrier instead of a bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we find that balance?
Right.
How can we use these informal phrases to connect with people without sounding like we're trying too hard?
It's all about observation and awareness,
Yeah.
paying attention to how people naturally speak in the environments you want to be in.
So it's like tuning your ear to the specific, like, dialect of casual English
Yeah.
that's relevant to your situation.
Exactly.
So it's not just about memorizing a bunch of phrases. It's
Yeah.
about understanding the social context in which those phrases are used.
Yeah, exactly. It's about being present in the conversation and adapting your language accordingly.
Right, like that.
Now, this might sound a little surprising,
Okay.
but one of the most powerful tools in casual conversation is actually often overlooked, and that's pauses.
Pauses.
Yeah,
Wait, aren't we supposed to, like, avoid those awkward silences?
right.
I always thought that a smooth conversation meant keeping the words flowing constantly.
That's a really common misconception.
Oh,
We're not
right.
talking about those long, uncomfortable silences.
Right.
We're talking about strategic pauses that can actually make your communication better.
Okay.
I mean, think about how you speak naturally. You don't just talk without breathing, do you?
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess I never really thought of those natural pauses as like a technique.
Well, they are. A well-placed pause can create a little anticipation.
Mm.
It can add emphasis to what you just said.
Uh-huh.
Or it can just give your listener a chance to process what you said.
Yeah.
It can even make you seem more thoughtful and more confident.
So it's kind of like those dramatic pauses in movies.
Yes.
You know, they build suspense and they make you lean in,
Exactly.
wondering what's coming next.
And in casual conversation, pauses can have a similar effect. They make your words seem more important.
Okay.
And they make you sound more engaging.
So it's not about filling every second with words.
Right.
It's about using those moments of silence to our advantage.
Exact.
I like that. It makes it feel more sophisticated.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of sophistication, let's move on to something that goes beyond the words themselves.
Okay.
Let's talk about tone of voice and emphasis.
Oh, this is fascinating.
It is.
I love how, like, the way we say something can completely change its meaning,
Uh-huh.
even if the words are exactly the same.
It really is like a secret code, you know, adding layers of nuance and emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You can take a simple phrase like, I love pizza,
Okay.
and it can sound sincere or sarcastic or even doubtful
Yeah.
just by changing your tone.
It's so true.
Yeah. It reminds me of how actors can deliver the same line in a movie,
Uh-huh.
but in totally different ways, you know,
Yeah.
conveying different emotions and subtext.
Exactly. And that happens all the time in casual conversation, too.
Yeah.
Tone and emphasis play a huge role in creating humor, expressing empathy,
Right.
and even building rapport.
So it's not just about what we say,
Mm-hmm.
it's also about how we say it.
Exactly.
Our tone and the way we emphasize certain words can be just as important as the words themselves.
I think that's something that a lot of people learning a new language might overlook.
You're probably right, because it's one of those things that native speakers just do instinctively.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered contractions, fillers, informal phrasing,
Right.
and even the strategic use of pauses and tone of voice.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot to take in.
It is.
What other hidden tricks do native speakers use to make their casual English sound so effortless?
Well, one area that can be tricky, but also super fun, is slang.
Oh, slang.
I love the energy and playfulness of slang,
Yeah.
but I've definitely had moments where I've used a word or phrase that completely missed the mark.
I think we all have.
It can be a minefield out there.
It really can. And that's why it's so important to know your audience.
Uh-huh.
Because if you're talking to people who share your cultural background or age group, slang can be like a secret handshake,
Right.
signaling that you're part of the in-group.
Yeah.
But if you're talking to someone who isn't familiar with that specific slang,
Mm-hmm.
then it can create more of a barrier than a bridge, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate this ever-changing world of slang without sounding like we're trying too hard?
That's a great question. It leads us to another principle that's super important for effective casual English. Brevity.
Brevity. You know what they say? Brevity is the soul of wit.
I love that.
And I totally agree that keeping things short and sweet can be a game changer,
Oh, for sure.
especially in casual conversations.
Absolutely. Casual English tends to favor concise, to-the-point language.
Yeah.
It's about getting your message across without getting bogged down in unnecessary words or overly complicated sentences.
It's kind of like texting.
Uh-huh.
We naturally use shorter sentences and abbreviations to get to the point.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And that same principle really does apply to casual conversation.
Hmm.
Short, impactful sentences are generally more engaging and easier to follow
Right.
than long, rambling ones.
It's about cutting through the clutter and getting straight to the heart of the matter.
Exactly.
You know, sometimes when I'm speaking English, I catch myself like translating directly from my native language,
Yeah,
but which can lead to these longer, more complicated sentences.
that's a really insightful observation.
Thanks.
And it's something that happens to a lot of language learners,
Mm-hmm.
especially if their native language has a different sentence structure.
Right.
But by focusing on clarity and brevity,
Uh-huh.
you can overcome that habit and
Mhm.
make your English sound a lot more natural.
So it's about embracing that less is more mentality,
Yeah.
especially in casual conversation.
Yes.
Be clear, be concise,
Uh-huh.
and don't be afraid to get to the point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your message is clear, it's engaging,
Yeah.
and it's authentically you.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of casual English
Uh-huh.
and revealing all those subtle techniques that native speakers use without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the best part is that these are all skills that you can develop with practice and awareness.
Totally.
It's empowering to know that we can all improve our conversational skills,
Yeah.
no matter what our current level is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a secret toolbox filled with all these tools
Right.
to enhance our communication
Yeah.
and connect with others on a deeper level.
And you know, speaking of connecting with others, this brings us to a really interesting aspect of casual English that's often overlooked,
Okay, what's that?
and that's body language.
Body language.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the words we use,
Right.
it's also about how we present ourselves physically.
Absolutely. Body language can completely change how people perceive your words.
Yeah, I've heard that something like 90% of communication is actually nonverbal.
Wow. It's a lot.
Right, so even if our words are perfect,
Mm-hmm.
if our body language is sending mixed signals,
Yeah.
it can create confusion or even like undermine what we're trying to say.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why it's super important to be mindful of your posture,
Okay.
your eye contact, your facial expressions, even
Yeah.
your gestures when you're having casual conversations.
So it's about being present,
Yes.
not just verbally, but also physically.
Exactly.
It's about conveying confidence, openness, and engagement
Hmm.
all through our body language.
Precisely. It's about aligning your verbal communication with your nonverbal communication
Okay.
to create a really powerful and authentic presence.
This is all so insightful.
It is.
It's like we're starting to see the bigger picture of casual English now, where it's not just about the words themselves,
Right.
but also about the way we deliver them
Yeah.
and all those subtle cues that we're sending through our body language.
Exactly. And the more we understand those subtle things,
Mm-hmm.
the more we can appreciate the art of casual conversation
Yeah.
and use it to build better connections with people.
Okay, I love that. So we're really starting to understand the full scope of casual English now.
Ah.
And it's not just a set of rules. It's
Yeah.
really a way of expressing ourselves more fully
Yeah.
and connecting with people on a deeper level.
Exactly. And, you know, speaking of connection, there's another really fascinating aspect of casual English that we need to explore,
Okay, I'm ready. What is it?
and that's humor.
Humor.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It's so important.
I love a good laugh.
Me too.
And you know, I've noticed that people who are good at telling jokes and being funny,
Uh-huh.
they're also really engaging and captivating,
Yeah.
especially in conversations.
Yeah.
But how do we get better at being funny in English?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And, you know, humor can be so culturally specific.
Right.
What might be funny in one culture
Yeah.
might not be funny at all,
Totally.
or even worse,
Yeah.
offensive in another culture. Right?
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope sometimes.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
trying to be funny, but also trying to be appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate all the subtle nuances of humor in casual English?
Yeah. That's a great question.
It really is like there's this invisible line
Uh-huh.
between being funny and being inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it can be tough to find that balance.
Yeah, it can.
And there's so many different types of humor.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's puns and wordplay, and there's observational comedy,
Yeah.
and even self-deprecating humor.
Yeah, I think it's not just about telling jokes, is it?
No, it's not.
It's also about having a more playful attitude,
Uh-huh.
being able to laugh at yourself, and finding the humor in everyday situations.
Exactly. It's about that, like, lightheartedness and ability to see the funny side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how do we develop that sense of humor in a different language?
Right.
Is it something that can be learned, or is it more about personality?
I think it's a bit of both.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I really do think that everyone has the potential to be funny.
Mm.
It's just about finding that part of yourself and finding a style of humor that feels authentic to you.
So it's not about trying to be someone we're not. It's
Right.
about embracing our own unique sense of humor.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, one of the best ways to develop your sense of humor in English
Uh-huh.
is to expose yourself to different types of comedy.
So like watching stand-up specials
Yes.
or listening to comedic podcasts
Yeah.
or even just paying attention to the funny conversations that happen around us.
Exactly. And the more you expose yourself to different styles of humor,
Mm-hmm.
the more you can figure out what resonates with you and what you find funny.
It's like building a humor vocabulary.
I love that analogy.
Thanks.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then it's all about practice
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
experimentation.
Trying things out.
Yeah. And seeing what works.
So being brave enough to try different types of humor,
Yeah.
even if we don't always get it right.
Exactly. It's about embracing that awkwardness and
Ah.
realizing that it's part of the learning process.
Sometimes the biggest laughs
Huh.
come from those moments
Yeah.
when we least expect it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's about being open to those unexpected moments of humor
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to laugh along with everyone else.
So we've talked about contractions, fillers, informal phrasing,
Yeah.
pauses, tone of voice,
Uh-huh.
body language, and even humor.
It's a lot.
This deep dive is really living up to its name. It's amazing how many layers there are
There are.
to casual English.
And that brings us to another really important point,
Okay.
and that's storytelling.
Oh, storytelling.
Yeah.
I love a good story.
Me too.
And I've noticed that people who are good storytellers
Mhm.
are just like naturally engaging and captivating,
Oh, they are.
especially in conversations.
Yeah.
But how do we become better storytellers in English?
That's a great question. And, there are a few key elements to good storytelling.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Well, first of all, a good story needs a clear beginning, middle, and end.
So it needs structure
Yes.
to guide the listener through the narrative.
Exactly. And within that structure, you want to create a sense of anticipation and build towards like a climax
Okay.
or turning point.
So it's like building suspense
Yeah.
and keeping the listener on the edge of their seat.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you need a satisfying ending that ties everything together.
So it's about creating a complete narrative arc
Yeah.
that leaves the listener feeling fulfilled.
Exactly.
Okay, so in addition to structure, a good story also needs vivid details and imagery, right?
Yes. It's not just about telling the facts.
Mm-hmm.
It's about bringing the story to life
Yeah.
with sensory details.
So that it engages the listener's imagination.
Exactly.
I bet tone of voice and body language also play a big part in storytelling, too.
Absolutely. The way you tell a story
Mhm.
can be just as important as the story itself.
Hmm.
Your tone of voice and your body language can convey emotion,
Yeah.
build suspense, and make the story way more engaging and impactful.
So it's about being a performer as
Yeah.
well as a storyteller.
Exactly. It's about using your voice, your facial expressions, and your gestures to bring the story to life.
This is fascinating. I'm starting to see storytelling as a whole new level of casual English,
Uh-huh.
where we're not just using words to convey information,
Yeah.
but to create an actual experience for the listener.
You're exactly right. And, one of the best ways to become a better storyteller
Uh-huh.
is to just practice, practice, practice.
So it's about finding those opportunities to tell stories, right? Whether it's sharing an anecdote with friends or giving a presentation at work,
Yeah.
or even just recounting something funny that happened during the day.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more confident and engaging you'll become as a storyteller.
This is so inspiring.
It is.
I'm already thinking about all the stories I want to share.
That's awesome. And speaking of stories, there's another really interesting aspect of casual English that we should explore,
Okay, what's that?
and that's idioms.
Oh, idioms.
Yeah.
Those are so colorful and they add so much flavor to the language.
They really do.
But they can be tricky
Uh-huh.
to understand
Yeah.
and to use correctly.
They can be really challenging for language learners because their meaning isn't always obvious
Yeah.
from the individual words.
It's like they have a hidden meaning that you need to unlock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are so many idioms in English,
Yeah, there are.
and they cover so many different topics and situations.
So it's like having a secret language
It is.
within the language.
Yeah.
But once you understand those idioms and can use them correctly,
Yeah.
it can really enhance your casual English
Yeah.
and make you sound much more like a native speaker.
Exactly.
So how do we get started with learning and using idioms effectively?
That's a great question. And one of the best ways to learn them is to really immerse yourself in the language.
Okay.
Reading books,
Mm-hmm.
watching movies, listening to music,
Yeah.
and talking with native speakers can help you pick up new idioms.
And the more we're exposed to the language,
Mm-hmm.
the more of those idioms we'll start to recognize and understand.
Exactly.
And then we can start to incorporate them into our own conversations.
Yeah, and there are a few things to keep in mind when you're using idioms.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes.
Okay, well, first of all, it's important to use the idiom in the right context,
Yeah,
because if you use an idiom in the wrong situation, it won't make sense,
right.
or it might sound really awkward.
Like wearing a tuxedo to a casual lunch.
Exactly.
Okay, so context is key when it comes to using idioms.
Yeah.
What else should we keep in mind?
Another really important thing is to be aware of the tone of the idiom.
Mm-hmm.
Some idioms are more formal,
Okay.
and some are more informal.
So it's important to choose idioms that match the tone of the conversation.
Exactly.
So if we're having a casual conversation with friends, we might use more informal idioms.
Right.
But if we're in a business meeting,
Yeah,
we'd probably stick to the more formal expressions.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's about choosing the right idiom for the right occasion.
Okay, so context and tone.
Yes.
Got it. Anything else?
Yes, one more thing.
Okay.
Use them sparingly.
So we don't want to overload our conversations with too many idioms.
Right. It's kind of like adding too much spice to a dish.
Ah, another great analogy.
Think.
So it's about finding that balance
Uh-huh.
between using idioms to enhance our language
Yeah,
and not letting them take over the conversation.
you got it. It's about using idioms strategically to add color and interest to your casual English.
This is so helpful.
Good.
I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about using idioms now.
I'm glad. And, speaking of confidence, there's another important aspect of casual English that we need to discuss.
Okay, what's that?
And that's assertiveness.
Assertiveness.
Yeah.
So it's not just about speaking correctly.
Right.
It's also about speaking with confidence and conviction.
Exactly. It's important to be able to clearly and directly express your thoughts and opinions in casual conversation.
So it's about owning our words
Uh-huh.
and not being afraid to speak up.
You're right. It's about feeling comfortable sharing your perspective and engaging in meaningful conversations and exchanging ideas.
But how do we find that balance between being assertive
Yeah.
and being respectful of other people's opinions?
That's a great question. And, assertiveness isn't about being aggressive
Okay.
or dominating the conversation.
So it's not about trying to win an argument or prove that we're right all the time.
Right. It's about expressing yourself in a way that's clear, confident, and respectful.
So it's like that middle ground between being passive
Uh-huh.
and being aggressive.
You got it.
Okay.
It's about being assertive in a way that's constructive and positive.
Okay. That makes sense.
Good.
So how can we develop that assertive communication style in English?
That's a great question. And, there are a few key things we can do to become more assertive.
Okay. I'm ready to take notes again.
Okay, first of all, you have to be aware of your own thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
It's about understanding your own perspective and what you want to communicate.
And once we're clear on our own thoughts and feelings,
Right.
then we can start to express them clearly and directly.
Exactly. It's about using I statements and owning your opinions.
So taking ownership of our words
Uh-huh.
and expressing ourselves authentically.
Yeah.
I imagine body language plays a big role in assertiveness, too.
It does. Your posture,
Yes.
your eye contact, and your tone of voice can all convey confidence and assertiveness.
So standing tall, making eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
and speaking with a clear and steady voice.
You got it. It's about using your body language to reinforce your words
Okay.
and convey confidence.
This is all so helpful.
Good.
I feel much more empowered to speak my mind now.
That's great. And, speaking of empowerment, there's another really important aspect of casual English that we need to talk about,
What's that?
and that's cultural sensitivity.
Oh, cultural sensitivity. That is so important these days.
It really is.
Especially in today's globalized world where we're constantly interacting with people from all different cultures.
You're absolutely right. Cultural sensitivity is about being aware of and respectful of the different customs and beliefs and values of other cultures.
So being mindful of the fact that people from different cultures
Yeah.
might have different ways of communicating,
Yeah.
expressing themselves. Expert! Welcome back. I'm still thinking about all the fascinating stuff we talked about in the last part.
Me too.
It's like casual English has suddenly become this multi-layered puzzle,
Yeah.
and we're finally starting to see how all the pieces fit together.
It's so true. It is fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
We tend to just think of language as words, but casual English is so much more than that.
Right.
It's this blend of tone and body language and, cultural awareness, even humor.
Right.
It's how we truly connect with people, share stories, and express ourselves.
You've really opened my eyes to the depth of all of this.
Good.
And I bet our listeners are feeling the same way.
I hope so.
Something you mentioned earlier about moving words from our passive vocabulary to our active vocabulary really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Absolutely. Recognizing a word is one thing.
Right.
But confidently using it in a casual conversation is totally different.
Totally different, yeah.
It's like having all the ingredients for some delicious dish, but you don't know how to combine them to make it taste good.
Perfect analogy. So how do we unlock those words and make them an active part of our everyday conversations?
Yeah.
Do you have any tips or techniques that have worked for you or that you've seen work for other people?
One of the best ways is to try to incorporate those words, those shy words, into your daily life.
Okay.
It's not about memorizing lists.
Yeah.
It's about finding opportunities to use them naturally.
Okay, so it's about creating those opportunities rather than waiting for them to magically appear.
Exactly. So, for example, let's say you just learned the word astounding.
Okay.
Instead of just thinking, oh, okay, astounding, try to use it in your next conversation.
Okay.
You could say, wow, the sunset last night was absolutely astounding.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like turning vocabulary learning into a game.
Uh-huh.
Instead of passively absorbing words, we're actively trying to use them.
Exactly. I like it. And, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Stumble over the word or mispronounce it.
It's all part of the process.
It is. The more you use it, the more comfortable you'll become.
That reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about having a growth mindset.
Yeah.
It's about embracing those stumbles as opportunities to learn and improve.
Exactly.
Speaking of growth, another aspect of casual English that we haven't really touched on yet is listening.
Right.
It seems obvious.
It does?
But are there any hidden tricks to listening well in casual conversations?
Yeah, you've hit on a really crucial point.
Okay.
Because active listening is really the key to good communication. It's not just about hearing the words.
Right.
It's about really engaging with what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
So being present in the moment, not just waiting for our turn to speak.
Exactly. And there are a few techniques that can help us become better listeners.
Okay, I'm ready. What are they?
One of the most important things is to make eye contact with whoever is speaking.
That makes sense.
It does.
Because eye contact shows them that we're paying attention and that we're interested in what they're saying.
It's like a nonverbal way of saying, I'm here with you. Tell me more.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah. What other techniques can we use?
Another important technique is to use nonverbal cues.
Okay.
To show that you're listening.
So nodding our heads or smiling.
Yes, exactly.
Or using appropriate facial expressions.
Yeah, all of those nonverbal cues signal to the speaker that you're following along.
Yeah.
And that you're understanding what they're saying.
I bet it also helps us to stay focused.
It does.
And present in the conversation.
It does. It's about being an active participant. Even when you're not speaking.
Okay, so eye contact and nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
What else?
Another key technique is to ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
So if you're not really sure if you understand something, just ask for clarification.
Okay.
It shows the speaker that you're really engaged.
Yeah.
And that you want to make sure you understand their message.
It also helps to prevent any misunderstandings.
It does.
And it keeps the conversation flowing smoothly.
Exactly. It's about being proactive in your communication.
Okay.
And making sure that you're both on the same page.
So active listening is like a hidden superpower.
It is.
It's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about actively engaging with the other person and really building that connection.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It really is the foundation of any strong relationship.
Yeah.
And good communication.
This is so insightful. I'm already thinking about ways I can use this in my own conversations.
Good.
It's like you've given me a whole new toolbox for building better connections with people.
And, speaking of building connections,
yeah,
there's another aspect of casual English that I think we should talk about.
Okay, I'm ready.
That's small talk.
Small talk. I think we've all been there.
We have.
It can be so awkward.
It can.
And feel so superficial sometimes.
It can. but it serves a really important social function.
Okay, tell me more. I'm intrigued.
It's often the first step in establishing a connection with someone.
Uh-huh.
It's like a icebreaker.
Right.
That helps to warm up the conversation
Yeah.
and create a more comfortable atmosphere.
So it's about finding common ground and establishing that sense of familiarity.
Exactly.
But how do we make small talk feel less awkward
Right.
and more genuine?
That's a great question. There are a few things we can do to make small talk a little more enjoyable.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes again.
Okay, well, one of the most important things is to try to be genuinely interested in the other person.
Okay.
So instead of just going through the motions,
Right.
try to be curious about who they are and what they have to say.
Okay.
Approach it as an opportunity to really connect with another person, not just a social obligation.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. What other tips do you have?
Yeah. I mean, what else can we do to make small talk less awkward?
Another helpful tip is to ask open-ended questions.
Okay.
So instead of asking questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no,
Right.
ask questions that encourage the other person to say more
Yeah.
and share more about themselves.
So those open-ended questions really invite the other person to open up
They do.
and share their thoughts and feelings. And it's like we're giving them permission to be themselves and to like engage in a more meaningful conversation.
You've got it. It's about creating a space where they feel comfortable sharing their perspective.
So be genuinely interested and ask those open-ended questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
What else can we do?
Yeah, what else can we do to make small talk more enjoyable?
Be a good listener.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about that earlier, active listening.
Yes.
It's crucial for any conversation.
It is.
But especially for small talk.
It really is. When you're actively listening to someone, you're showing that you're really engaged and interested in what they're saying.
And it helps us to find that common ground and learn more about the other person.
Exactly. Active listening is a key ingredient for making small talk more meaningful.
This is all so helpful.
Good.
I'm starting to feel a lot more confident
I'm glad.
about navigating all those small talk situations.
I think the more you practice small talk, the more comfortable and natural it'll become.
It's like anything, right?
It is.
The more we do it, the better we get at it.
Yeah, exactly. And as you become more comfortable with small talk, you can start to see it as an opportunity to connect with people.
Right.
And build those relationships.
This whole deep dive has really changed how I think about casual English.
Good.
It's not just about speaking correctly. It's about using language to like build bridges, to connect with others, and to express ourselves authentically.
You've captured the essence of it perfectly.
Thanks.
Casual English is about so much more than just words.
Yeah.
It's about using language to create a sense of belonging, to share our stories, and to just make the world a more connected and compassionate place.
I love that.
Right?
It's like we're taking casual English beyond just a set of rules and turning it into a tool for making the world a better place.
Exactly. And, speaking of building a better world, there's another aspect of casual English that I think we should talk about.
Okay, what's that?
And that's giving and receiving compliments.
Oh, compliments.
Yes.
Everyone loves a good compliment.
They do.
But sometimes giving and receiving compliments can feel a little awkward.
It can.
Especially in a different language.
I know, it can be a little tricky.
Yeah.
But compliments are such a powerful way to make someone's day and to strengthen our connections.
So how do we, give and receive compliments in a way that feels genuine and heartfelt?
That's a great question. There are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes.
Okay, well, first of all, when you're giving a compliment, try to be specific and sincere.
Okay.
So instead of just saying something like, oh, you look nice, try to be a little more specific.
Okay.
And say something like, I love your new haircut. It really suits you.
Yeah.
When you're specific, it shows that you've actually noticed something about them.
Right.
And that your compliment is genuine.
And I bet our tone of voice and body language also matter.
They do. When you're giving someone a compliment, try to make eye contact and smile. And use a warm and friendly tone of voice.
So it's about conveying our sincerity, not just with our words, but also with our nonverbal communication.
You got it. It's about creating a sense of warmth and connection.
Okay, so be specific, be sincere, And use positive body language.
Exactly.
Okay, what about receiving compliments? Sometimes I just feel so awkward when someone gives me a compliment.
I know it can be a little awkward.
And I'm not sure how to respond,
Right.
you know?
The most important thing is to just say thank you
Okay.
and accept the compliment gracefully.
So we don't have to downplay the compliment or deflect it.
No, because when you deflect a compliment, you're essentially rejecting the other person's kindness.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like saying we don't believe them or that we're not worthy of the compliment.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Okay.
You want to accept the compliment and acknowledge that they were being thoughtful.
So just a simple thank you with a smile.
Exactly. And, if you feel comfortable, you can even add a brief comment to acknowledge the compliment.
So if someone compliments my new dress, I can say, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows that you appreciate it.
Okay.
And that you're happy that they gave you the compliment.
This is really helpful. I'm starting to see compliments as like a beautiful way to spread positivity.
They are.
And strengthen our connections with people.
You're absolutely right. They're like little gifts that we can give to each other.
Yeah.
To brighten each other's days.
I love that. It's like we're sprinkling a little sunshine into someone's day.
Exactly. And speaking of sunshine, there's another aspect of casual English that I think we should talk about.
Okay, I'm ready.
And that's expressing enthusiasm.
Oh, enthusiasm.
Yes.
I love people who are enthusiastic.
Me too. They're so fun.
They bring so much energy and positivity to a conversation. But I sometimes wonder if, my enthusiasm comes across correctly in English.
Right.
It
can be a little tricky.
Yeah.
To express enthusiasm in a different language.
Right.
But it's such an important part of casual English.
So how do we do it?
Yeah.
How do we express enthusiasm in a way that feels natural and authentic?
That's a great question. And, there are a few key things we can do.
Okay, I'm ready for more notes.
Okay, well, first of all, it's important to use a variety of expressive language.
Okay.
So instead of just saying good or okay,
right,
try using more descriptive and engaging words.
Okay.
Like fantastic or amazing or incredible.
So a richer vocabulary
Yeah.
helps to convey that excitement and passion.
Exactly. And our tone of voice and body language are important too.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, when we're really enthusiastic, our voices naturally become more animated. Our facial expressions become more expressive.
Right.
And we tend to use more hand gestures and things.
So it's about letting our enthusiasm really shine through.
Yes.
In our words and our voices and our body language.
You got it. It's about being fully present.
Yeah.
And letting your passion for whatever you're talking about come through.
Okay, so expressive language, animated voice, and positive body language.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Yeah, another helpful tip is to ask enthusiastic questions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so instead of asking, what did you do today? You could ask something like, tell me everything about your day.
Yeah.
What was the best part?
Yeah.
When you ask questions enthusiastically, it shows that you're really interested in their experiences.
Right.
And that you're excited to hear more.
It's like we're inviting them to share their excitement with us.
Exactly. It's about creating that positive and energetic environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing what they're passionate about.
This is so insightful. I'm starting to see enthusiasm as this contagious energy that can really make conversations more enjoyable.
It is. Enthusiasm is like a spark that can ignite the conversation.
Yeah.
And make everyone feel excited.
I love that analogy.
Thanks.
It's like we're adding a little bit of magic
to
the conversation with our enthusiasm.
And, speaking of magic, there's another aspect of casual English we need to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
And that's dealing with awkward silences.
Uh-oh, those can be so uncomfortable.
They can be.
I always feel like I need to say something to fill the void.
Yeah.
Even if I don't really have anything to say.
I understand. Awkward silences are definitely challenging.
Yeah.
But they're a natural part of any conversation.
So we shouldn't be afraid of them?
You shouldn't. In fact, a brief pause can actually be good for the conversation.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more.
Yeah. A pause can give you a moment to collect your thoughts. To process what the other person just said.
Okay.
Or even just enjoy a quiet moment together.
So it's not always necessary to rush in and fill the silence.
Exactly. Sometimes silence can be more powerful than words.
But what if that silence starts to feel super awkward?
Yeah.
What can we do to break the tension?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a few things we can do.
Okay, I'm ready. What are they?
One thing you can do is just acknowledge the silence. You can say something like, it's so peaceful here.
Okay.
Or I'm really enjoying this quiet moment.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of takes away the awkwardness
Yeah, it does.
when you acknowledge it.
What other strategies can we use?
You can ask a follow-up question or make a comment about something you talked about earlier.
So just find a way to like re-engage
Right.
with the other person and keep that conversation flowing.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about bridging the gap
Yeah.
and creating that sense of continuity.
So acknowledge the silence.
Yeah.
Or find a way to re-engage.
Exactly.
Okay. What else?
Another really helpful tip is to just be comfortable with silence.
Hmm.
You know, you don't always have to feel like you need to talk.
Okay.
Sometimes silence can be a great way to connect with someone and create a sense of intimacy.
That's a beautiful perspective.
Right.
It's like we're saying, I'm comfortable being here with you, even in the quiet.
You're exactly right. It's about creating a space
Yeah.
where silence isn't awkward. It's just a natural part of being together.
This is so insightful. I'm looking at awkward silences in a whole new light now. It's not about being afraid of them.
Right.
We're trying to avoid them. It's about embracing them as a natural part of interacting with other humans.
You've got it. Silence can be a powerful tool
Yeah.
for connecting with someone.
This whole deep dive is really expanding my understanding of casual English.
That's good to hear that.
It's not just about speaking correctly.
Right.
It's about using language to connect with people
Yeah?
and express ourselves authentically and embrace all those little nuances of human interaction.
You said it perfectly.
Thanks.
Casual English is about so much more than just words.
Right.
It's about using language to build bridges and share our stories and make the world a more connected and compassionate place.
You know, this has been such an inspiring conversation.
Good.
I feel so much more confident and enthusiastic about using my casual English skills to connect with people.
That's awesome. And, you know, we've covered so much,
We have.
but there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I can't wait to continue this journey
Me too.
into the fascinating world of casual English.
It is fascinating.
This has been such a rewarding experience. Thank you for sharing all your expertise and insights.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for your enthusiasm and for being so willing to learn.
And to our listener, we hope you're enjoying this deep dive as much as we are.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll go even deeper into all the little nuances of casual English.
It's amazing how much we've learned about casual English in such a short time.
I know, right? It's like a whole new world has opened up.
Yeah, and it's incredible how many different layers there are to something we do every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, we often take casual conversation for granted,
We do.
but there really is an art to it.
There is.
It's this subtle dance of language and tone and cultural awareness.
You know, I think what surprised me the most is that it's not just about like knowing all the rules or having a huge vocabulary.
It's not.
It's more about being present and engaged and really interested in connecting with the other person.
You're so right. All those techniques we talked about, contractions, storytelling, active listening, those are all tools that can help us connect more authentically
Yeah.
and have more meaningful conversations.
You know, something you said that really stuck with me was that pauses, those moments of silence can actually be really powerful.
They can.
You know, I used to think of them as like these awkward gaps that needed to be filled immediately.
Right. A lot of people think that.
Yeah. But as we were talking about, those pauses can create emphasis and give space for reflection.
Yeah.
And they can even make our conversations sound more sophisticated.
Exactly. It's about being comfortable with silence,
Yeah.
not being afraid of it.
And that ties into being a good listener, which I'm realizing now is so much more than just hearing the words. It's about really tuning in to the other person,
Yeah.
asking those clarifying questions,
Right.
and making them feel heard and understood.
Exactly. Active listening is a skill that takes practice.
Yeah, it does.
But the rewards are huge.
They are.
It strengthens relationships, it deepens understanding, and it just makes conversations more enjoyable for everyone.
You know, I'm already starting to notice a difference in my own conversations.
That's great.
I'm much more aware of my tone and my body language, and I feel like it's easier to connect with people on a deeper level now.
That's fantastic. That's what it's all about.
It is.
It's a testament to your willingness to learn and experiment.
Yeah, and I bet our listeners feeling inspired to do the same.
I hope so.
So before we wrap up, what's one final piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to master casual English conversation?
Embrace the journey and have fun.
I love that.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes, experiment, and find your own voice.
Yeah.
You know, within the beautiful framework of casual English.
It's not about being perfect.
It's not.
It's about being authentic and letting your personality shine through.
Exactly.
And enjoying the process of connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And expressing yourself in a way that feels natural and genuine.
Casual English is constantly evolving.
It is.
So stay curious.
Yeah.
Keep learning. And most importantly, have fun.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and insights with us.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for your enthusiasm and for being so open to learning new things.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have.
Remember, language is a powerful tool.
It is.
And the better we get at using casual English, the more we can use it to build connections and share our stories and make the world a more vibrant and compassionate place.
That's beautiful. Until next time, happy conversing.